This episode is brought to you by P3 Recovery. We see the trophies, the goals, the celebrations on the podium, the moments that create sporting history. But what really is behind these moments? The backstory will take you into the life behind the athlete to really understand what's led them to success. From the moment Chaz Mostert got behind the wheel of a racing car, he was destined to be a champion. A national Formula 4 champion and two-time winner of the greatest race in Australian motor racing, Bathurst. Mozzie, as he is known to his fans, is a lovable larrikin and has never been afraid to be his true self. But in 2015, his career in supercars was nearly taken from him, after he was involved in one of the most frightening accidents we have seen at Bathurst. Multiple broken bones and half a season on the sidelines recovering saw him have a wake-up call he never knew he needed. Chaz Mostert, thanks for joining me on The Backstory. I'm really looking forward to a conversation with you. Tell me about young Chaz growing up in Brisbane. What was life like for you?
Yeah, it all kind of, if you want to talk about the motorsport, how it all kind of started, I guess it started just in grade one for me, where I was going to local school, primary school first year, and I was surrounded by all these kids getting Pee Wee 50s for Christmas and their birthdays and all that kind of stuff, and I thought it'd be a great conversation to go ask Mum to get into motorsport on a Pee Wee 50 and ride around the 5 acres that I grew up on, but she absolutely flipped out at the time, thinking I'm going to break all these bones, and obviously thought I was uncoordinated or something. And in the heat of the frustration at the moment that I asked, that she said, "Oh, it's going to be 4 wheels or no wheels." And then I suppose Dad got the idea of getting me a bit of I already kind of had a dirt go-kart, but he thought maybe we might go and check out a go-kart track. But yeah, growing up was very lucky. I was the only child to my mum and dad, and I was very spoiled along the way, and yeah, kind of just living my best life.
So the taste for wheels, for 2 or 4 wheels, it didn't come from a family influence. It's sort of just from your mates at school.
No, like my old man growing up kind of always had dabbled in different motorsports. So he was into boating for a little bit and stuff like that. But that was before I actually came along. But no, I think I was in school. I was trying to play some soccer or football. But unfortunately, I was too scrawny and too little, and when you're trying to put a tackle on someone, you would go flying and bouncing, and that wasn't that enjoyable or fun for me. So wasn't a very fast runner. I didn't think I was very good at swimming or anything like that. So yeah, I was kind of keen to try something a bit left field and a little bit less effort. I thought was with the motor underneath you. It was on 2 wheels or 4 wheels, and yeah, I really loved thrashing a dirt go-kart around home. That was a lot of fun. I think I rolled it once or twice and had to come down to the back patio to get Dad to come out and tip it back on its wheels for me, but just loved it. Something about driving fast and not putting as much effort in as yourself, and seeing, I guess, the grass fly past you or the trees fly past you as exhilarating as a kid. So yeah, just kind of hooked on the speed of things at that time.
And then you headed to Formula Ford, and things went well for you pretty quickly. When did you think, this is what I want to do? Like, this isn't just me having fun in the backyard. This is something a little bit more serious.
Yeah, it was obviously a little bit tricky and a step up from the karting. So I did 8 years of bitumen karting then, once we got hooked on that. And then, you get sucked into the success of motorsport. So won some state titles and won a couple of national titles in go-karts, which is great. And at that point, I was pretty, naive to a point. I didn't know what $1 was worth, and Dad would be like, "Well, do you want to go take the next step and go car racing?" Which was the natural progression, was Formula Ford at that point. So for me, I was like, "Yeah, I don't know how much it's going to cost or anything like that. Yeah, I just want to keep racing and challenge myself." And yeah, the step up was pretty hard. I think a lot of young people don't understand the step up from karting, where you're on a short track and your reaction time happens too quick, to going into car racing, where you got to let the car do a lot of the work, slow down your inputs and all that kind of stuff to extract speed. So the first 2 years of Formula Ford was really, really kind of hard and mentally from a driver's point of view, because success didn't come straight away. It was quite tricky, and you start to think, oh, maybe I don't have the ability that I think I had from go-karts. So it all obviously came together in the third year of Formula Ford, but at that point it was, it tested you out differently from mentality, that's for sure.
I hear from many athletes that the juggle of school, mates, wanting to go to parties on the weekend, but then, you've got this car racing thing that's happening as well and is getting pretty serious. Do you remember what that was like and some of the sacrifices you had to make as a young fella?
Well, I guess from the schooling point of view, there wasn't really much of a sacrifice there because I guess through primary school, I was like reasonably switched on and getting good grades. But unfortunately, once I got to middle school and high school, the interest lied somewhere else, which was racing. But parents made sure that I kept trying to stick by, and they gave me the option when I was a bit older in grade 10. It's either you got to do an apprenticeship and you can leave school, or you finish your school out. So for me, I went and started a diesel apprenticeship, I think halfway through grade 10 or something like that. So school wasn't for me anymore, but it was good. I had obviously dad influencing me from the side, making sure that you still got to have something if this racing thing doesn't work out. So pushed me that way. And the parties things kind of thing, I guess I was a designated driver pretty much for all my mates at a young age because I just love driving things, and if it was even on driving my, I think I had at that point a Toyota Corolla Seeker, and then I had a Honda Civic, which I still got now. I was always just dying to drive. So I was always, I never really was influenced much into drinking at that point or anything like that. And then obviously dad was the same thing, focus on this, focus on that, and kind of where I got to today, I suppose.
Your story is a little different when you talk about the next step, because all of a sudden you're in a proper car, a proper racing car, and you're at Bathurst, one of the most difficult tracks, one of the most daunting tracks that we have here in Australia. Tell me about just those first couple of days when you were like, okay, I've got this opportunity to get in a car properly, but it's at probably the most difficult track we can go to.
It was tricky, yeah. So obviously that last year for me, Formula Ford was, I was winning the championship. That was all great. And the next step is then obviously going to Supercars, which is generally development series. But we aligned ourselves with a really nice guy called Wayne Miles. He was running a race team at the in development series at the time. And he's a bit of a loose character. And he goes, let's just chuck you in for Bathurst in my Formula Ford championship winning year. And I'm like, oh, young, yeah, no dramas. This is going to be
Got
cool.
this like
yeah.
that.
So I think it was actually in a BF Falcon at the time. We were up there, and first lap, I remember going up Mountain Straight, and you're into it, giving it the full bean, 650 horsepower V8 supercar, up the main straight, and the first rise on Mountain Straight, your stomach goes right up to your throat, basically, and going, oh, this place is wild. Even after track walk, you think, oh, it's not too bad, but once you're flying around there, well over 200 kilometers an hour in a race car, it's a different feeling. So yeah, eyes are wide open like this, and just thinking, this is so cool, but so scary at the same time. And it's that crazy exhilarating feeling as a race car driver. So first time. And to be honest, every lap you go back there year after year, it still get that feeling like, wow, this is full commitment around here. You settle down now after the couple of years, but I think that whole weekend, the first time there, was just unbelievable.
Skip through and you end up with a development series drive, and you progress pretty quickly, and then you end up in one of the most competitive seasons I think we've ever had in the development series against Scott McLaughlin, Nick Percat, Scotty Pye, yourself. Tell me what that was like, the intensity of that year and that season and the races that you had.
Yeah, that year, I mean, obviously, like you said, so many great drivers, young up-and-coming drivers, and now you look at it, we've all been into the supercars and established our careers there. So being all that young, we were super competitive, and I would say probably all four of us, any of us were friends with each other at stage. We all wanted to beat each other, and we were also linked with main series teams as well, which were duking it out on the main series level. So this was like a side competition as well for those main series teams being involved in development series, seeing their young junior drivers go head to head. So it was cool. I'm sure we pushed each other. I'm sure all of us made plenty of mistakes throughout that year, and we rubbed each other pretty hard, and no doubt forced each other off the track at different points. But I wouldn't change a thing. Those guys in the development series years shaped the drivers that we are today, and I'm no doubt got the best out of each other in that series.
What did life look like for you throughout that year? I mean, there's obviously aspirations to head to the main game, the V8 supercars. You're battling it out so competitively with these other guys. What was sort of the Chaz Mostert life like then?
Yeah, at that point for me, like I said, old man pushed me pretty hard trying to do an apprenticeship. So I was kind of halfway through an apprenticeship in diesel fitting, but it kind of got a bit hard to juggle the racing and that at the time. So I was very lucky that at that point Ford Performance Racing, took me inside for the development series, and then obviously was finishing my apprenticeship with them at the same time. So for me, it was V8 Supercars on and off the track, because when I wasn't doing the development series racing, I was also at the track trying to learn the ropes of how the most professional guys do it at the time. At that time was obviously Will Davison and Mark Winterbottom. So watching them as a younger driver, how they contained themselves, how they tried to extract the speed out, for me I was kind of like a schoolgirl watching, the favourite concert or something like that. So I was glued to that and watching how they contain themselves and really just trying to take in as much as I could. So I think I wasn't even a number 3 mechanic then. I think I was just the fuel guy.
The floor sweeper.
The floor sweeper, which just asked them, I still probably did a terrible job. But it was awesome. I was just in awe of what those guys were doing and the competition that they were up against, for those, I think it was at that time, 15 rounds a year. And seeing them just trying to push themselves and the inner team battle as well, and all that was really cool to watch. And so at that point, it was just full focused on trying to hopefully one day be good enough to get to Supercars.
Tell me about the time you got that phone call that says, we want you in our car for the V8 Supercars for the main series through Dick Johnson Racing. Tell me about how you found out and how that came about.
It was crazy because obviously there was a few of us guys like that, from the development series. There was us 4 young guys pushing each other. I think, was it 2 out of the 4, I'm pretty sure at that stage, already got the main game seat for that following year. And 2 of us got left out, or it might have just been me left out, I'm not too sure. So I committed to another year of development series, keep trying to do that, I suppose, apprenticeship of the craft and stuff like that. I did the first round at Clipsal, and I think we tied on points there for the series lead at that point. And then all of a sudden, coming into a couple of weeks out from Barbagallo, I think it was, is that Tickford, or I think it changed to Tickford or FBR at that point, they changed so many names, was obviously DJR was a satellite team to them, getting cars and bits off them. And they really needed a driver to try and bring the cars forward. So they kind of struck a deal, so we'll put our young guy in there. So development series over then. Next I'm going for my first Supercar Championship race at Barbagallo. Got 1 test day at Morgan Park out at Warwick, which is not a supercar track on this calendar. So felt very green, but as soon as, learning the race starts against some of the best guys in the country, and then straight into your first pit stops and all that, and the level of competition just took to another level. Obviously winning development series, then struggling around that 15th to 10th position, which we thought we were punching above our weight at that time, was just awesome. It just hooked me straight away, and just absolutely loved the call up. And then obviously come into the sport for Dick Johnson Racing, such an iconic team, was really cool.
You were only, I think it was 5 rounds in, and then you head to Queensland Raceway, and all of a sudden this young Chaz Mostert is taking a victory within the V8 Supercars. I mean, just describe for me what it was like, that last lap, knowing you're getting the checkered flag first, standing on the podium for one of the most iconic teams we've ever had in Australia.
Yeah, I still say this day, Queensland Raceway is still my favourite track on the calendar. I think it's got to the point where it's only got 6 turns and I actually know where they go and I can keep count. So, and obviously maybe because it's had my first win there was fantastic too. But like I said, we were very lucky because when we were at Dick Johnson Racing at the time, it was a satellite team to FBR. Will and Frosty got the cars really on song, so it wasn't too hard for us to put in a setup very close to. I was obviously working with Adam DeBore, which I still am at this time, and he's very switched on. So the car was very fast at that point, and I'd done plenty of laps around QR, so it was nice to get out there, and I think we qualified second. My mate Will was off first, and unfortunately it had rained, so he had the wet line to start. So here I am, a young guy, starting off the front row. Might have been crapping my dacks at that point, but I was lucky I had dry track and got away. And at that point, yeah, the car was fantastic. The pit stops all went smooth, and to be able to get that win for Dick Johnson in that year was really cool. And obviously it was great for the sponsors that supported the team. There was no question about it. The team had been struggling a little bit financially at that point, so I would like to say that, from where that team is now, there was those crucial years that really helped change that team in perspective of where they are now. So, it was cool to get that. And obviously very special too, because I was shared on the podium with Will and Frosty at the same time, which 2 guys I was obviously doing my apprenticeship through development series, looking up to them. And, those guys give you a pat on the back after the handshake at the end of the race was cool. And you see they obviously felt like they had something involved to do with what you did. So, which is really special for me. That was by far still one of the highest podiums in my career.
So when you get signed on to FPR and you sort of, is that when you felt like I'm here, I've arrived, I'm in the V8 Supercars, I'm with one of the top teams? Is that, would that be correct?
Yeah, I suppose a few different emotions from that point of finishing at Dick Johnson Racing for that year. When I first came into DJR, there was zero expectation. It was just about trying to do better than the results they were doing, and the cars obviously progressed a lot through that year. And I can't remember what I finished in the championship, but it wasn't too bad considering where we missed out on the first few rounds. But then obviously getting the call up to join the factory Ford team at that point. Obviously, mate Will had moved on to do something else, and they were some pretty big shoes to try and fill. So the pressure for me was probably the first time I've actually felt that amount of pressure in my career. So I don't know, I tried to use it as fuel to try and get in there and do the best job, but I still felt like I had plenty to learn at that stage, still making plenty of mistakes and stuff like that. But it was awesome to know that you had attracted enough attention from the team to make that step into the seat. So yeah, mixed emotions, obviously excitement, but then the pressure with it. And so yeah, at that point, took it with my stride, but yeah, still had plenty to learn.
I think it's important that you identified that you felt that pressure. I think there's probably a lot of young people out there who get an opportunity and it's sort of like a bit, guarded. I don't want to look like I'm nervous, so I'm going to pretend I've got this. I've got a handle on that. I think it's important that you identify, yeah, I was nervous and, I had a lot of pressure from external people.
Yeah, pressure. I suppose it wasn't more the external pressure. I think it was more the internal pressure you put on yourself as being an athlete or someone in your career. So, but like I said, it's how I was probably lucky the age that I did come through, which was probably still a bit young and naive. And for me, it was like, I'll use this pressure as fuel. And, obviously you've got to look at the positives, that you're in the seat for a reason. You've got these opportunities for a reason. So trust your ability, trust what you do. And I must say the team from the outside were fantastic. They knew I was still going to make mistakes along the way. But they were more thinking year 2, year 3 along the way of trying to hit those strides. So yeah, I was very lucky. There's obviously some sports and some team cultures around the world that maybe are probably a bit more harder from external, but I was very lucky for where I came through. So more the internal pressures on myself was the thing that was not really eating me up, but I was trying to fight. And then I think I overcome it in the end. But yeah, it's tough. It's a lot of different emotions that you have in any career.
So let's talk about Bathurst. What comes to mind when you think about Bathurst?
What, as in where I'm sitting right now?
Yeah.
I mean, I've been there a lot of years now, so I have plenty of different emotions come to that place. But I suppose if you go back to early career, you need a lot of luck around there. It's pretty simple. It's such a long race. There's a 50-cent part on your car that could break and you could be out of the race. So many opportunities. I always say there's 100 reasons through the race why you shouldn't win it, but maybe one reason why you can through the race. So first year, I think it was there in DJR, crashed, in practice, and the car was never right again for the rest of the weekend. And then the second year, complete turn of tides and end up winning it from last place to my mate Paul Morris, and the race just panned out our way. So then you have this such high expectation any year after that, oh, well, you've won it once, I'm sure you can try and win it again. But that place just can keep kicking you while you're down. So I've got plenty of emotions to that place, more respect than anything, because I guess we look at that, a lot of drivers look at that place that it's a living soul or it's a living place. But what's always the magical about that place is every Sunday that we race the 1000 there's a new story about to get told. There's a new amount of history going to that place, and you can never sit there on lap 1 and write out a script of how that race is going to pan out. It will never go the way that you will think it will, and that's what's so magical about it.
You mentioned 2014. You get a victory there with Paul Morris. You're from last on the grid. Do you remember what was going through your mind when you're standing at the top step and there's literally thousands of people below you? I think I was fortunate enough to do the interview with you below the podium, which I'm very grateful for. But do you have sort of memories of what that blur must have been like?
I just couldn't still believe it, at that time, I didn't know, say, for the last lap and all that kind of stuff, which a lot of people ask, what were you feeling? Did you know Jamie was close on fuel and all this kind of stuff, where at that point you just see a car and you're just trying to get past no matter what. That's your job when you put your helmet on for your team, and you're always making sure you'll race all the way to that checkered flag. But I guess once got past him at the elbow and we rubbed a little bit and he was trying to play the tactic again, trying to save his fuel and got past, it was like, I guess the last couple of corners was more so you see a little slide with the car here and there. I guess I do say it's just another car you get past, but anytime you can pass, the GOAT, which is like what we'd call J-Dub, is a big achievement for any race car driver. So that was the little celebration slide that just got past him. How cool is this? And then all of a sudden you pass the line, you win the biggest motor race here in Australia. And at that point, you're there on the crowd, you see, I was driving for Ford at the time, you see all these Ford banners, you see all these Ford fans. And no different than the Holden fans when a Holden wins. And it's just something special, like that moment up on that top step, you're looking down, you see your team, they've worked extremely hard to get you where you are today. It's a team effort, and you're just so happy and grateful. And there's no feeling comes like that for any race car driver. It's the best feeling in, I don't know, I'm a bit biased, I'll say the world, but I no doubt there's plenty of other big races around the world that have the same feeling. It's just amazing. So yeah, you just wish you could stand on that podium for 2 hours because it never lasts long enough. They rush you off and you're off to a press conference, but up there and seeing all those people that you feel like they're all in your car with you when you're racing, it's quite amazing.
So 2015, you've spoken about it extensively. We've all seen the footage. We've had a conversation about it. The worst thing that can possibly happen to a driver is have an accident the extent that you had at Bathurst that knocks you out for the rest of the season. But I want to focus on how you tackled that mentally.
Yeah.
Your body's broken, your car's broken, but how do you get through those next few months from a mental perspective?
Yeah, probably sum it up the best way is from hero in 2014 to zero in 2015. Like you said, we missed out on the season at the end of 2015. I guess the worst thing that hurt was not the championship in 2015, was the fact that didn't actually get to race and have a chance to go back-to-back as Bathurst champions. We had a fantastic car, had a fantastic co-driver in Cam Waters. So really gutted from that point mentally that, you let not only just yourself down, but your teammate and your co-driver and the team as well. And then for the rest of the year as well. So mentally also broken, not just physically, because you go, one bad judgment call, one bad mistake, and you can sit yourself on the sidelines. And mentally it was a bit tricky for me too in that racing period. I think you actually came out of the house, we had the pole award and stuff like that. And at that point you're dealing with all stuff that I guess some sports people are, I would say, unlucky enough that in their sport they would get injuries, like football players. They constantly injure themselves, but they've got themselves a great team around them. Their rehab is second to none. If they do an ACL, they know exactly how long it's going to go to fix before they can play again. Where for me, I broke my leg, tore my meniscus, broke my wrist. The ligaments were the stuff that I had to sit with a straight leg for 6 weeks till then I could get into the rehab. But probably didn't have the right people around me or the right people to reach out to. So you're mentally thinking, will I ever be right again? Will I be physically ready for that due date in February where it's time to get back in the car and get myself ready for the next season? That was a tough battle for a good couple of months there because you lose all your range in your motion of your flexibility in your leg. I think once I got out of my leg brace, I had 25 degrees of motion and trying to break that, trying to get it all in through the physio and all that kind of stuff. But the process just felt so long and so slow. So that mentally was hard, I suppose. But when it got to the time when I actually got back in the car, everything had gone away. I mean, and for me, the most overwhelming part about it was also the fan support through it. All that kind of stuff was that the motivation was more than enough there. But just those mental battles of trying to be like, am I going to be ready? But once you got in, it was no dramas. But 5 months was a long time.
Was there points throughout that 5 months where you might have questioned whether you were able to race again?
Wasn't about whether I'd race again. It was just about making the start of the next season. That was the hardest part. There's points where I thought halfway through, I'm like, I haven't progressed as much as I wanted to. The last part obviously got very fast to getting good enough to get back in the car, but midway through you're going, I just can't see that finish line of being ready. So that was tough. And then for me it was like not so much the pain and injuries, but there was a lot of nerve pain that came with the extent of the injury. So your brain's telling you things are a lot more hurt than actually probably what they were, just how sensitive it was. So painkillers and all that kind of stuff that you're on. I was lucky to have my stepmom Annie. She was amazing. She's leaning me off all the stuff because at that time you're on a lot of the stuff that think I'm actually not that bad.
Yeah.
But then when you get leaned off it, you really know that you've still got a long way to go. So lucky I had her in my corner, helping me out along the way and being at the family home at the time. So, but yeah, like I said, the midway point was like, oh, I just can't see the finish line here, and just the glad that kept working hard and got where I was. And no doubt I carried those injuries through 16 and probably put more weight on than I ever had, because at that point before the crash, I was just relying on youth to drive the cars. Never really had a training regime. Probably had a very bad diet, and I was just going off the youth side. So as much as the crash was bad at that point in my career, I probably look at it more of a positive thing now, because I changed my whole lifestyle around that and how I go about racing now.
That's really interesting. You say that you got that sort of new perspective, and you worked out that you need to do a couple of extra things or change a few things to really get the most out of you. What do you can you remember what those specific things might have been throughout that rehab process where you thought, actually, I need to do this in order to be back there in February?
It probably wasn't through that 5 months off on the rehab period. It was probably the next year, you know. And it's funny, you look back on photos of yourself, if you're lucky enough to get a podium or whatever, and you're like, wow, you don't see that. I don't often look in mirrors or something like, geez, you're getting quite a big boy here, you know. I mean, like, race car drivers, I say, we probably don't need to be the fittest in the world as an athlete, but our sport is very unique in a point where it gets very hot in the cabin. So there's some level of fitness you got to have to that. But I think it was just that year, looking back on photos and thinking, you don't look your real happy self, and you probably don't mentally feel as happy as you should be either when you let yourself go to that much. So at that point, the next year went probably too extreme from one level to another. But I don't know. I now try and find a nice little balance there somewhere, a bit of training, still have fun in life, because you need that. Because your sport, as much as you love it, it's not everything. It's but yeah, at that point in my career, 2015 through to 16, shaped me the person I am today for sure.
Yeah. And tell me, getting back in the car at Bathurst, was there ever fear? Was there ever second guessing? Can I actually get this done?
I suppose I was very lucky at a point. I've always dabbled in some extracurricular racing, you know. First time I went back there was for the production car 6 hour. I can't remember what car we were running around. I think it was a BMW at that stage. So the speeds were a lot further down. So I was real grateful that I had amazing people like Barry Morecambe in my corner to allow me to come jump in a production car before we had to go back in a supercar. And it's not really, when you're young and you have those setbacks, it doesn't really scar you, like as in the whole place. It might scar you on that one corner, and it takes a couple of years to find yourself, get rid of those demons. But I guess where I crashed, I was very lucky. It's a flat out corner. So once you go through it flat a couple of times, it goes away. Where you have a crash through a corner where you've got to really commit, there's a bit of brake or a bit of accelerator, and you're right on the edge of that grip level, you'll always find that you'll lose 1/10 of a second or 2/10 of a second for a good couple of years there to someone that hasn't had a crash. And I've had that under the tree there at turn 6 before, and stuff like that. So I was lucky where I crashed that it was easy to get rid of those demons pretty quickly.
When you're sitting at the end of pit lane and you've got your top 10 shootout lap ahead of you, and you feel like you've got confidence in the car, what are you talking to yourself before you leave pit lane? Are you quiet? What's take me into the car, take me into the helmet?
Yeah, I guess you're sitting at pit lane. Obviously this year I was third last car out. We had a fantastic car for all the practice sessions, and the beautiful thing about our car was probably from about practice 3 or 4, we didn't do a lot of changes in the car, so you knew the exact car you had under you. You just didn't know what the track conditions were like. But there's a couple of cars out before us. They absolutely laid some heaters down. Anytime you get in the 203s around there is an ultimate commitment lap, and Cam is scraping his mirrors everywhere. Brody is leaving nothing on the table. So when you're doing 203.6, I think was the time to be, you're like, well, I don't know. But you're thinking about it and you go, hey, hang on, Chaz. Let's just stop thinking about it. Just go out there, break on your markers, and maybe explore it a little bit, go a bit deeper than what you normally, and we'll just see what we got. But the car brought the tyres in real nice, and when I started the lap, I'm like, oh, this thing feels really, really nice. And first time, I wouldn't say the first time, but the number. This is by far the best car I've ever driven around there, and so it was just so enjoyable. I wasn't looking at time variance on the screen or whatever. I was just letting the car do its job. Little wobble here and there, but then you get to the line and you cross the line, and you've pretty much hit every mark on the track. and you see the time come up, you go, wow, that was so fun and enjoyable, and it felt fast. It felt very GT-ish, as I like to say, because those have so much downforce and stuff like that, but that car was super enjoyable. That even though you're the third last car out and you do a 2:03.3, which is the fastest lap around there in a Supercar ever, you're like, well, if I've done the fastest lap, there's still 2 more cars, so let's control the excitement a bit. How cool, but there's still 2 more opportunities. We might lose pole here, and you sat through it, and obviously the car was fantastic and got the pole. It's so cool, and this year was so special to do it there because we had all the fans back at the track, and I remember being 12 years old, standing on that mountain, and there was key points of watching sessions at Bathurst. There was a first session, watching the cars run around on a green track. There was a top 10 shootout because you were there barracking for your favourite driver, and you're on the edge of your seat. You always think you're going to see something special from a lap time and top 10 shootout, best conditions of the day. So you could only imagine the fans were riding along in your car as well. Maybe not the ones that weren't wearing a Mostert shirt or a WAU shirt, but definitely those guys, because it was just special to do a lap around there by yourself in any year.
I want to talk about your dad and Annie and your mum. Your dad he's there pretty much every race. He's right by your side. The passion that he has for racing and for you. I mean, how special is that relationship?
Yeah, it's great. I wouldn't be obviously where I am today without my old man's sacrifices and how hard he worked and points of mortgaging the house to get me through Formula Ford. And so, like I said, earlier on, I was very naive. I didn't know what $1 was. If I knew what I knew now, I probably wouldn't be a race car driver because I wouldn't have put them through that I guess that stress financially to do what we do. But obviously, it's paid off pretty well now. But yeah, for me, he's been a big part of it. We did all our go-karting together. He never paid for a mechanic to take me go-karting. He was my mechanic, and my mum was our, she'd write all the data down and the lap times off the little Alfano we had at the time. So it was a family sport, and we enjoyed that. And we went to Formula Ford, and we tried to do it on ourselves and Dad involved, and that was very tricky as another level again. So I guess he found it harder through the motorsport years that he didn't have as much involvement in the go-karting, but he supported me every race of the way. He was at most of them. Probably the last 12 to 18 months, he stepped back a bit because he's given his whole life to me and coming along for those journeys. So it's good to see him step back, but he's generally the first person to message me after every session. More going, what's going on? Why aren't you fast enough? So it's or he's messaging Adam because it had such a Adam's definitely part of our family as well, being together so long. So he's still very much involved, but it's good to see him have some time off too. But I think I get asked about 100 times on every weekend. Where's your old man over the last 12 months? So I'm like, you have to come back because I can't keep explaining to 100 people on a race weekend why you're not here.
He's got his own fans.
He's got his own fans or his own friendships. So it's a very special relationship. He's extended part of the team. Probably drives me up the wall a little bit, and I drive him up the wall sometimes. But I wouldn't change a thing. He's an absolute lovable bloke, and like I said, I wouldn't be where I am today. And obviously Annie comes along as well. Supports me, supports him. It's such a family sport. It's crazy. You get your partner come along. With Ree, she comes along, supports me when she can, when she's not working. And I always say I got a bunker crew. I always say hello to bunker crew on the thing. There's probably 20 people around home. If they can't get to the racing, they're watching there. So I'm very lucky to have some amazing friends in my life that also support my racing, and I don't know, maybe sort of give them something to have a drink or a bevy on the weekend, something to watch.
You've mentioned fans several times. I know that you love fans. Fans love you, but fans can also be difficult with social media and trolling. And you've been a huge advocate within the sport about getting rid of trolls and no social hate that you've created the hashtag for. Tell me about fans and your experience with how they've been across your career.
Yeah, it's definitely been, I'm sure all of us drivers in the Supercar Championship at some stage, if not a lot of sports around the world, we all fuel off our fans, there's no doubt about it. We love to see positivity, we love to have a bad race, and our most loyalist fans support us, and because we read that, and we're suckers to it. We want to go on there, and we see a lot of our loyal fans say, don't worry, we still support you, and on your bad days and your good days, and we'll ride it out with you. That makes us feel great. But the last, 5 years, 3 or 5 years, it's really changed, and it's people just saying bad things or nasty or want to kick you when you are down. And it really hurts because we're just humans at the end of the day. We're very lucky to have the sport that we're in, and we've worked hard to get to where we are. But no one, doesn't matter if it's your worst enemy on track, doesn't ever deserve to be put in those situations and attacked behind a keyboard, because a lot of these people that are attacking you along the way, they don't know the type of person you really are, you know what I mean? And I can sit here and say everyone in the championship are all fantastic people off the track. Once you put the helmet on, we're all trying to do the job for our team, and we'll go out there, we'll make mistakes. None of us are perfect. We'll lock a brake and run into someone else's favourite driver, as long as they don't get hurt, and I'm sure we'll have words after it, but everyone's human at the end of the day. So it really hurts, and I suppose the bit when it comes to the No Social Hate campaign, probably hasn't reached the same levels of, say, Louis Ham's campaign and all that kind of stuff. But I am very proud of how much it has gone around already. It's just see some people that I know in the championship. There's no secret about it. You know, Will Davison was the last straw for me, seeing him cop it online. And I just wanted to say something. And at that point, it made me so angry just seeing negativity come to someone that's actually so lovely, that I was actually then and there, if I didn't say something and then I didn't see some level of change go through not only fans but also the media companies that also want to fuel that situation.
Clickbait type thing, yeah.
Clickbait stuff. If I didn't see a level of thing, I was willing just to give social media up then and there just to make a stand, because it's just absolutely ridiculous. So look, there's no secret about it. We still get plenty of it. But I think it raised a lot of awareness to other people, and a lot of people are talking about it, and I hope it keeps carrying on. But at that point, I'm pretty proud how, you know, the good people are really getting behind it, and not targeting the people that are being very negative and making it an online fight, but trying to educate them and try and say, hey guys, maybe this ain't right. You should have a think about what you're saying. And, you know, if it gets one comment deleted off there and it doesn't affect another athlete as much, then it's doing its job. So, and I think already, you know, there's been some media companies get behind it, trying to do something different with their channels and try and police their comments and give people strike things and all that kind of stuff. It's good. I'm very, very happy that it's trying to do something.
What's changed? Chaz Mostert, who was, you know, young in development series, you're only, I think, like, what were you, 18, 19, and then now you've got 2 Bathursts under your belt. You're well and truly one of the championship contenders and have been for many years. How have you seen yourself change from that young driver to how you are now?
I think every year you try to change something and try to better your craft or try and pick on your weaknesses from the year before. So I don't know, the older you get, I feel like when you're trying to really piece a championship together, you're just always working on consistency and trying to make less mistakes. And there'll always be a point through the year where, you know, that 21-year-old Chaz will come out and drive like a peed-off teenager, and you're like, oh, you get to the end of the race and you got yourself a penalty for this or that, and you go, was it worth it? No, it wasn't. Why didn't I just keep that same level head? But I don't know, you say championship contender for the last couple of years, it's always a defining moment from the first start of the race to where you are 6 months, and you almost know if you're in for a shot or not. And the last couple of years I've always felt I haven't, but always use that last 6 months to be like, well, I need to start working on that next year and start working on that. So I don't know. I don't know really what's changed, but definitely think about that bigger picture a lot more. I guess the older I get, I feel like I'm trying to get more involved with the team, and not from being like a pest and trying to bring the team down and put those hard words on, but just trying to help where I can. I mean, I try to think culture is a big thing in any sport. You're away so many weekends of the year, so everybody in the team's got to feel happy, and it breaks your heart when you find out someone isn't as happy as they could be. So I try to influence myself that. I'm very lucky that the teams that have been involved already have all the building blocks to great culture, and maybe I think all the sporting teams in Supercars do. But I just like to really get around the people that put all the hard work in, and I don't know, it just becomes an extended family. So it's not really a job, it's kind of just enjoyment.
I just really quickly want to touch on Cam Waters. I know you guys are mates, I know your partners are best friends, but there's been some tension throughout the years. How have you dealt with that on-track tension and your off-track friendship?
I think we play on it a little bit for the fans because we like to get them involved. Everyone loves a rivalry, but you know, I always say this, and I don't know, a lot of other drivers live by the same mentality, but in racing, there is two types of bloke. There's the bloke with the helmet on, and then there's the bloke with the helmet off. And there's 100 times, and probably in my career, where I've made 100 mistakes. Where you go for a move and you didn't quite commit, and the other person was a bit defensive as well, and you end up ruining both your races. But that's your job when you're in anytime you put your helmet on. But that person on the track doesn't represent the person they are off the track. And I would say me and Cam have a fantastic friendship. He lives in Melbourne. If he lived up here, I'm sure we'd be hanging out every weekend and doing our things anyway. And like you said, our partners get along great as well. So there's always something. I think when they build his car and my car, they use the same magnets or opposite magnets. They always attract, and we always want to beat each other. Maybe that's because we're such good friends that we want to beat each other more than anyone else out there, and always comes off in chaos. But look, it's just a sport you're in. It can happen to anyone out there, but I don't regret anything, not at all.
Finally, your partner Riana, you guys have been together for many years. She's not always at the races, but I know you're absolutely your biggest supporter. She's always got the shirt on, got the hat on. How important is it to have her in your life?
Yeah, it is. I mean, I've been very spoiled for a amount of years. I have an awesome network around me. Obviously, my old man supported me along the way, crazy amounts. But yeah, when you, I guess, meet your love of your life or your soulmate or things like that, you know, supports me amazing. But what I love about her the most is she, I guess, likes the person I am. I don't know why, but likes the person I am and not so much what I do. So when I come home, I really do tune off from racing, and we just have our life together, which is fantastic. But when the race is on, she's the one telling you when you come 15th, like, oh, you did so good today. And Chaz doesn't think so, but it's always nice to have someone positive in your corner and not ripping you down, even though when you're trying to rip down on yourself. So she's, you know, amazing for me. She's the counterbalance in my life.
And I think the only girlfriend or partner in pit lane that officially has a tattoo of their partner on their bottom.
Yeah, I'm trying to think how we can get her, like her emblem, and no doubt I'll have to get it. So she did an amazing front flip off the front of a boat the other day, so I might call her Cannonball Riri or something like that. But I don't know if it would look good on my bum cheek or not.
Once again, Chaz is well and truly in the fight for the Repco Supercars Championship. He also continues to campaign for the charities he is involved with, raising much needed funds through his personal merchandise and sponsorship, in particular for Dolly's Dream. We look forward to seeing you on the next episode of The Backstory. Thanks to our friends at P3 Recovery for their support. Welcome to P3 Recovery Centre, a state-of-the-art recovery and wellbeing facility right here in the heart of Burleigh on the Gold Coast. Come with me, I'll take you for a tour.